So I would like to welcome everybody to our April NADA Community Connection Hour. It is really great that you're here on this, where I live anyway, in Southwest Virginia, a fine spring evening. I am Victoria Taylor. I'm an ADS and RT from Southwest Virginia, and I have volunteered to coordinate the Community Connection Hour for our organization. Angela Easterling will be supporting me this evening with the tech. Angela, you want to pin yourself and say hello?
Hi, everybody. I'm Angie Easterling. I'm super talented at muting myself. Anyway, I am really excited to be here with you all. Thank you.
And we got a bunch of people coming in now. So before we start the program, I want to remind everybody that this is a content-based enrichment presentation. It's not a membership or business meeting. If you have membership or business questions, you should direct those to our office by phone or email. And I think Angie will put the email up now. I would also, so that's how you contact me at the bottom and the NADA office at the top. I want to remind everybody that our conference is scheduled for June 23rd and 24th at Bowie State University in Maryland, and registration materials will be available shortly for that event. And tonight we will be talking about beads and seeds and how they expand our reach into communities. We ask you to stay muted until the discussion portion and unmute yourself then if you are called on to talk, all right? And if you would like to share about the work that you are doing in your communities during a community connection hour, please contact me at victoriataylor.acudetox.com, and we'll do an evening where you can be the speaker. Now, before we start the evening, our presentation, I would like to share the NADA mission and vision statement. Dr. Shirley Caniff from New England and Canada is going to read them for us this evening. They will also be up on the screen.
Okay, thank you.
Well, that's, yeah, there you go.
There we go. The NADA mission. The National Acupuncture Detoxification Association trains people in the NADA protocol and ear acupressure and acupuncture protocol for trauma, substance misuse, abuse, mental health, and behavioral health. Together, we promote and advocate for access to holistic health as a right of all communities. And the vision for NADA is, we envision a world where healthcare is people-centered, holistic, and accessible to the most vulnerable and underserved in our communities.
And we do that by these principles.
The spirit of NADA. All beings have a right to self-determination, the capacity to transform and be part of transforming society. NADA changes the dominant paradigm. Simplicity. The NADA protocol is easy to learn and to teach. Trust. We trust that people are capable of learning and that everyone has the capacity to heal themselves. And it's person-centered. NADA is a non-verbal protocol that meets people where they are. Sharing the protocol bridges cultural divides. Accessible and barrier-free. Historically and in the present day, there are many barriers to healthcare. Racism, casteism, and all isms are healthcare matters. We work to make the NADA protocol barrier-free and available to all. We believe everyone should have access to receive and learn the NADA protocol. Compassion. We bring an attention of healing to everyone with whom we share the NADA protocol. Community. Healing and recovery happens in community, and the NADA protocol is easily incorporated in diverse settings. We come together across disciplines to promote an integrated approach to healthcare.
Thank you so much, Dr. Caniff. That was so enthusiastic. It got me pretty excited.
Amen.
All right, Angie, you can do the next slide. because tonight we're going to be talking about beads and seeds as part of the NADA protocol. And we're going to examine ways we can integrate them into our offerings and expand our reach. Now, I'm guessing that many of us are already using a bead or seed on ear shen men after or in place of a needling treatment. Tonight, we will be exploring how using beads and seeds can expand our reach as healers. So first, I want you to know that the terms beads, seeds, and magnets are often used interchangeably, although obviously they are different. There are reasons to choose each, and although it is really the pressure that is the most important. Seeds refer to using Vaccaria or black radish seeds for the pressure. Next slide. Vaccaria in Chinese is Wangbu Li Xing, and it's a qi mover. It has anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties. To find out more about Vaccaria oil, I refer you to the article in Frontiers in Chemistry 2021. There should be the reference in the chat and in the next slide, which discusses the ethnomedical, phytochemical, pharmacological, and toxicological aspects of that herb. So actually the seeds, although the pressure is the most important, the oil does have medicinal properties. Angie, can you advance the slide? Yeah, so that's the reference, and then she'll put it also in the slide, the link to that reference. It's a pretty good article, pretty interesting. Anyway, beads will be made of different materials, often silver, nickel, or even plastic. Magnets are magnetic beads, often 100 gauge, and magnets tend to be a bit more expensive than the seeds. As a practitioner, I find the most important factor in choosing beads, seeds, or magnets is actually the quality of the adhesive. Some brands tend to dry out in a few months post-production, making them impossible to use and a big fat waste of money, while others, like the ones with the clear plastic, are hard to get into the geography of the ear. All right, next slide. It's also mindful to purchase adhesive in skin tones that more closely match those of your community. You can purchase seeds and beads and magnets from all the major acupuncture supply companies. If you are just starting out, I recommend buying a variety of types to discover what works best for you in your setting. Some people also use a tweezer or a pointer to take off the magnets, and sometimes, so that's a skill that you have to practice, and it works better with some presentations. So you have to find what you're comfortable with and what is available to you in your area and for your institutions. Well, what can you expect from using beads and seeds on ear points? Well, actually, you can expect the same results as you would from needling. This is a very brief quote, I think from 2010, of Mike Smith talking about using beads. Angie, can you push play? So the needles are convenient and they're effective, and as an acupuncturist, I like them because they're quick and easy, but they are the same as either your touch or using a bead, a seed, or a magnet. During the pandemic, I would lead groups on Zoom, just pressing our own ear shen men and breathing and feeling our respiration lower. I found that and doing the butterfly embrace were really, really effective in those early days of the pandemic when everyone was isolated and we didn't know what to do. So when we use a bead, a seed, or a magnet, we can expect the body to balance itself, to find regulation, and to find clarity, just like when we give the 5-needle protocol. In 2019, our own Kensu Carter and registered trainer Michelle Olshan Perlmutter published a study in the Journal of Applied Nursing using ear seeds on Shen men with psychiatric nurses, and demonstrated that the staff wearing beads experienced less burnout, than those not provided with that aid. Unfortunately, Ms. Olshan Perlmutter had to travel this evening and was unable to be with us. But for her, it was a very rewarding study, being able to serve her coworkers with such a simple and inexpensive intervention. And so the reference for this article in the Journal of Applied Nursing should be in the chat, and there is the reference. Okay. How about this study? Next slide. About using auricular acupressure, lowering anxiety and fatigue in post-cesarean women. That's that study. No, that's not the next slide. Yeah, that one. That study was done in 2016. And just last week, I was at a local brewery and restaurant, and a member of my community called me over and said, Victoria, you know those beads you gave me? They really work. I feel much better. But one of my favorite demonstrations of the impact of using our beads is in our training resource manual on page 98. This is the story of Andrea, a 14-year-old girl who lives in an institution. She has many co-occurring disorders, including Down syndrome, nystagmus, attention deficit disorder, and some other various nervous disorders. Periodically, the program had the children draw self-portraits. And we'll show you on the left is Andrea's attempt at drawing herself. As you can see, the views have multiple eyes, some have only one. There are barbs around her head, that might be her limbs. But in viewing her drawings, it would seem that Andrea's head is not a very pleasant place to be. But 5 months later, using the same self-portraiture activity, she drew the one on the right. During this time, Andrea had had a gold bead placed on the back of her ear. Nothing else in her environment had changed. But clearly, 5 months after wearing beads, she was in a better space when she drew the second portrait. So it's obvious that beads and seeds are effective and inexpensive and require little training to use and can be worn by anybody with verbal consent. Besides the occasional challenge with the adhesive, the only other downside that I've discovered is you actually have to touch the client and sometimes touch their hair or head, or you have to give verbal instruction for them to apply it to themselves, which if you don't share a common vocabulary or language might be challenging. Other than that, they're pretty simple to use. So how can we spread their use? The use of this very simple tool. So I would like to share an initiative that I and my associate Tony Dancy came up with a few years ago. I came home from a NADA conference and I said to Tony, we gotta do something to get beads and seeds in the hand of people. I said, like beadsandseeds.com. And Tony said, okay, beadsandseeds.com, let's get it. So that day we got the domain. And we created this little video. We haven't done a whole lot with the site, but this little video that we're going to show you seems to say it all. Hmm. Okay. Did we? So that little simple video that we made on with the filmer was a 13-year-old, and we made it on our iPhones. Is posted. So some people were having trouble seeing that. Anna Howell said she had to push it on the play button on her own slide. I saw it through what Angie did. If you missed the video, it's available at beadsandseeds.com. And you can just watch it. It's a 4-minute video starring me and my associate, Tony Dancy. Anyway, and then the next slide, Angie, is a Beads and Seeds card. So these are the little cards that we made, and we double stick tape. This is the Helio. This is Beccaria seeds. This is what I like because the adhesive is large and it stays on a long time. And also this adhesive tends to blend into all skin tones, whereas some of the others, the other seeds that come in the various skin tones, the adhesive tends not to last very long. And so I end up throwing out a lot of them. It only lasts about 3 to 6 months, especially if you leave them in your car, which, because I'm really committed to having the Beads and Seeds available at all times, I leave them in my car. Anyway, on the back of this card is the QR code directly to the video, and as well as a little map of how to wear Shen Men. It doesn't have reverse Shen Men because I don't know how to draw that. But you can make these cards yourself, right? It's like you don't have to, people like, can I buy those cards from you? And I'm happy, if you contact me, I'm happy to send you some, but make them yourself. Make your own Beads and Seeds initiative. Okay. Now there are aside from Tony's and my beadsandseeds.com, and there's also a company called earseeds.com, but they teach other things than the 5 NADA points. There are tons and tons of resources on this AccuDetox.com resources, Beads and Seeds. So for example, there are downloadable brochures. Get the next slide. Yeah, they're so cute. And direction sheets. The next slide. Yep. And there are also 3 short videos that were made during the pandemic. It was called Beads and Seeds Pass It On Challenge. And they're real short. They're about a minute and a half each. So we're going to watch all 3 of them. You might see me and my grandson in one of them. That's another, yeah. Whoops. There's 3 videos. There we go. Thank you, Angie.
Are we waiting for a video?
I see.
Because I'm silent, I don't hear anything. Is someone talking and I'm just not hearing?
There's a video. I'm pushing it on the bottom of your. Sorry.
No.
Yes, I didn't hear anything either.
I can see and hear, so something different is going on.
No, I pressed the wrong one. I don't know. I got this guy that I listen to. He's not he's not into this at all.
All right. I'm so sorry. Apparently, while we were watching those videos, several people were unable to see the videos. There are 3 very short videos that are on the AccuDetox.com website in the Beads and Seeds resource section. And they have no talking. They just show people putting beads on or doing the manipulation and sharing beads. And it has all demographics and ages, and it's just their kind of feel good Beads and Seeds videos. So I apologize. I don't know why some people were unable to see or hear that. Could you see and hear the Beads and Seeds video, Couture?
The first one, yeah.
Yeah. That's funny because someone else couldn't see that one. So I apologize, but those are all readily available and short, right? You could watch them while you're, doing your bathroom reading. So during the video, someone asked if you were going to give out beads in the public, what instructions would you give your clients, for example, in terms of how long to wear the beads? And so I tell my clients to leave them on as long as they're comfortable. Sometimes they move and they become uncomfortable. And usually about a couple of days to up to a week. I wear them for a very long time. But a lot of times my clients will say, look, I still have my bead on, but the bead isn't there, just the adhesive is there. And another really funny thing is sometimes people bring them back and say, here, I brought your just little beads in their hand. Here, I brought your beads back. So you need to advise people that they only have value when they're on the point. They only have value when they're on the point. The other question, that's something my students ask about a lot, is whether we can whether we can bead the other points. So there are 5 points in the NADA protocol, and can you bead all of them? So you can bead, there's a thing in the chat from a few people that this is their first time to the Connection Hour, and somebody from Seattle has said hello. There's lots of chats, so I just want to acknowledge that I see that. And in a little bit, I'll be finished the formal part of the presentation, and we can ask some questions and get to know each other a little bit more. So anyway, so you can bead all the points. However, there's some cautions that you need to take. So first of all, if you're beading all 5 points, point 1, you need to use tweezers because it's hard to get to. Point 1, you guys call sympathetic. We call them 1 through 5 in Southwest Virginia. But points 3, 4, and 5, which are kidney, liver, and lung, you should not send people home with beads in the cavum concha because there's too much risk of those beads falling into their ear. However, you can bead the reverse side, and those you can send home because should the bead fall off, it would fall down into the ground. So if you're doing the beads instead of needles for someone who has a needle phobic, then you can bead all 5 points, but make sure you take out at least the last 3, kidney, liver, and lung, before they leave. You can leave the other ones in, but Shen Men you can leave in. We don't use an ear stimulator at all in the NADA protocol, though you can use a pointer or a probe to find the points, in answer to your question, Dr. Cardiff. You can also, you can't needle 0.1 or sympathetic on the reverse because it's too far in. So I think that should answer some of those needling questions. Personally, I don't prefer to bead all 5 points when I do a group setting, when I have an open clinic, because it's time consuming and things catch like wildfire. And if you have one person who gets special treatment and gets all 5 points beaded, everyone's going to want to try that next time. Easier than the needles, and it is easier than the needles, but it is very time consuming for you as the practitioner. So I don't recommend doing that except for in special cases. And one of those special cases is youth. In one of the youth clinics that I supervise, they use an enormous number of beads and seeds. And one of the things about beads and seeds is because they don't pierce the skin, you don't need consent. You only need verbal consent. You don't need written consent and it also, the youth can use the beads and seeds themselves. And so it's self-empowering, and they can take them out into the community and bead and seed their colleagues. Another way, another study I want to call your attention to is the Medical Reserve Corps, who began incorporating beads and seeds into their, no, that's the last slide, so I guess we're good, into their disaster relief programs in 2017. And also an ADS presented at our Austin conference in 2019 about teaching beads and seeds to the parents of elementary school teachers in Maine. She did a PTA class, and that's what gave me the idea and the inspiration for the beadsandseeds.com. So now I want to hear from a few of you. How are you using beads and seeds? But first, let's just make sure everyone's got their questions answered. And those would probably be best put in the chat if you have any questions about how to use them or any of those concerns. Does anybody have any more of those kinds of questions? Or anything to add? I know we have some real senior practitioners here on the call tonight. We have people who is their first time just done the training, because I approved your certificate of completion. And we have people like Dr. Baker Rogers who've been around a long time. So any questions from the new people? Or any, you can just use the raise your hand function. All right, any of our, I don't want to say old people, but senior practitioners, how about that? Have our, again, beads versus seeds. Thank you, Mr. Cox. So the person who asked about the office, this is not a business meeting. The office is experiencing some transition at the moment. Your call will get answered in the near future, and I apologize for that, but this is a function of the membership committee. It's something completely different than the office. And the question about beads versus seeds. So you might have missed that part. We use beads, seeds, and magnets often interchangeably. They are not the same. A bead is a vicarious seed. A seed is a vicarious seed. A bead can be made of silver or plastic or nickel. And a magnet has a little pulse. It's magnetic. And some people prefer the concept of a magnet because the pulse helps move the chi. Some people are allergic to metal. I have several patients who can only wear the Vicaria seeds, so they don't like the metal. The Vicaria oil in and of itself is a chi mover. It has medicinal properties. Now, clearly it's infinitesimal because it's just on your ear, but energy medicine is magic. And so it's a chi mover. So that's a good thing. Did that answer that question? Great. All right. Any other questions? Oh yeah, Paul. Paul,
Well, the question I had is in approaching like schools or getting this report about the one that Dr. Carter and Perlmutter had used as far as the nurses and that. I think using the beads and seeds has a good chance of making an entrance and making way into them because, when you mention acupuncture, a lot of times people's barriers goes up and using that. But let's say like in a school setting. So what would I tell if it was a parent teacher? In case you didn't know, it's kind of been a while since I've been at a parent teacher conference. But what would I say to them, to at least get their interest?
well, you say to them that you have this technique that will help with mood regulation. And it's very simple and inexpensive, and you'd like to demonstrate it. And then you demonstrate it. And 24 hours later, people will either have, I treated a 9-year-old boy the other day who didn't leave it on until he walked across the room. But other people leave them on for 3 weeks, so you have to, you just have to try it. Like everything, you just have to get it out there and try it.
On the parents or on the child? Or either.
Victoria?
On the parents or on the child?
I would say that if you're going to be in a school, you really need to introduce it to the parents first and to let them know, to assure them that there's no medicinal quality to it, that it's really an acupressure kind of a situation. And actually, I have sometimes had them just do the manual stimulation for about 10 seconds or so, and they feel some relief. And I said, that's basically what will happen. Anybody can do it. You do not need to be a trained person to do this. And, you may find that it's helpful. I've used it with parents of children that have had quote on ADHD, and told them not to tell the teacher or the doctor that they were using the magnets. And she thought it was a miracle that this child all of a sudden was doing so much better in school. This particular case that I will reference, the young boy was 12, and he was in jeopardy of being retained. He could not get focused. But besides having the situation with quote unquote a diagnosis of ADHD, he was coming out of a chaotic environment. So I think there was probably some parallel processes going on for this person. And for all of us, we know that when we feel anxious, that it can impact our concentration. And, we feel very racy inside when there's just a lot going on. And so, our children are no different. And I think that, this can really be an impactful thing for all communities. I am talking to people about having a at-home behavioral health first aid kit. And part of your first aid kit are beads and seeds, right? And then the other ones are just teaching parents and families techniques like tapping and deep breathing and meditative walking and those kind of things that they can do, and they're free, and it doesn't cost them anything, and it can really help to stabilize the household.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Keturah.
Thank you, Keturah.
Dr. Caniff, you had a question?
Yes, I'm just gonna take my hand down. I'm trying to get to you. So I don't know if you can see this, but is this the probe you're talking about? Because there's several different kinds. I can't even see it. All right.
Yes,
Right
that's
there.
in your probe. Mhm,
Yeah,
mhm.
and you can put your intention right into the
A pointer.
point.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And it's
That
not
will
big.
provide a treatment as well. You know, you can provide a treatment just by touching the points.
Mhm, mhm.
Without electricity or stimulation. That's outside, like I said, that's outside our protocol. If you're an
Right.
acupuncturist or have other degrees within your scope of practice, you can do that. But just using the pointer
Yeah.
stimulates the points. Yeah.
It was a good investment. It cost me $60. The last I went to I think the one in Austin, Texas, a while ago. Yeah, the NADA
The
conference.
conference. Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, and yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
My-
just
my
as an
approach is about-
FYI, you can get beads you can get the seeds and beads at Target. And
Oh,
it's like $10. When I was out on the West Coast,
yeah.
I purposely got them, and you get the probe. So, and it's like for $10, $12. So
People use them for weight loss, so that's why they're available on the public market. You can also get them on Amazon really inexpensively, like
Oh.
100 for $10.
That's good. Let the families know about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and in your practices, you really don't want to charge for beads and seeds
No.
because this is, part of the mission that was read earlier is that the AcuDetox protocol is accessible by all people. And so that's one of the visions of beads and seeds, that we should all have pockets full of them and just be handing them out for free because they can impact all communities.
It's
So let
public
me hear.
health. It's public health. That's why.
Exactly, it's public health.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right, let me
Now,
hear.
as a practical question, I would say though that if you were doing it in a setting, if you take an alcohol swab, I know that one of the people in one of those videos, they cleaned off the ear where they were going to put the seed. If you get the body oils off, and it'll help that bead or seed to last a few days longer. It'll start sliding around, like you said, within a couple of days if you don't clean it off a little bit first. That's just what I've done over the brief period of time that I've been
well,
a
I
bead
think
monster.
just little practical things like, be mindful when you're cleaning your ears. Like, a lot of us, we want to be digging all in our ears because that's what we were taught. And when you're washing your hair and your ears are going to get wet, just little mindful things. They say, they should be good for about a week at least. I tell them probably that a week because I want them to come back and see me.
Right. Somebody asked in the chat whether beads and seeds were used during COVID, and I'm not exactly sure. Of course, they were used by those who knew about them. And the little video, the NADA video, Ear Seeds Pass It On, was done during COVID as a way to encourage people to self-care, to use beads and seeds on themselves, because if they couldn't do it in their family, if they couldn't go and get treatment because public interaction, because of the isolation or the lockdowns or whatever you want to call them. So yes, many of us. One of my favorite beads and seeds.
Agencies were using them as well, as opposed to the needling, because the needling requires a little bit more tactile and touch, and they were training their clients to put their own beads on. So particularly if they were IOPs or residentials, and those individuals, that still had outpatient treatment in the middle of COVID, they were using beads and seeds. They're now back to needling, so which is a good thing.
we didn't have the liberty of that interaction. But let me hear Wendy Henry and then Dr. Zahari, Dr. Nayeri, if you could share. Wendy, can you share about what you did in New York during COVID? Wendy? Oh, she's on a bus and it's too noisy. Well, she shared in the chat. You know, Wendy is an AccuDetox specialist and a trainer in New York City, and she is one of the people who really pushes the envelope of where and when she provides the protocol. And so it does not surprise me at all. I have this image of Wendy like in Prospect Park passing out beads and seeds to passerbys. And maybe if she gets off the bus, she can correct my image. Okay, Dr. Nayeri, what did you have to say?
Good evening, everyone. Sorry, I'm traveling and I only have access to audio, not video. I am currently living in Wyoming and working on the reservation at Wind River. Prior to this year, I lived in Arizona, and during COVID, I used the seeds a lot in order to help with various symptoms. Now I'm using it a lot for trauma as well as long haul COVID symptoms. I've been using the NADA protocol here on the reservation for over a year, and I'm having wonderful results.
Dr. Nayeri, when you do the beads for COVID, do you do all 5 or just your Shen Men, or what point?
So normally I do an hour protocol. So they come in and they do 45 minutes with the needles. And then when it comes to the beads, I do Shen Men and lungs because that is the primary organ that COVID affected. Sometimes for various cases when they are having severe chronic long haul COVID symptoms, I will put in the seeds for all 5 points. And I've gotten wonderful results from that. I believe there was an individual asking about schools. So I'm actually starting a program where I'm going to be treating Indigenous kids at the school for long haul COVID. Now, I will not be needling them. What I will be doing is I'm using a piezo stimulator in order to stimulate the 5 points, and then I go in with the ear seeds. The reason that I'm able to do this is because part of my practice for the last year has been treating kids. And so since the kids have gotten such wonderful results, they've gone back to the classroom wearing the ear seeds. Other students have asked them about it. And now parents and teachers have started to come, seen results. And so now the school board has asked me to come and present and create a permission slip where I will be going to the schools. So it's really here, my experience has been word of mouth. And as soon as you treat one individual and they see success, then you get the entire family.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Do you do all students, K through 12, or elementary or high or secondary?
Right now I am doing, I have a variety. So my youngest, the youngest one is 6 years old. And right now the oldest that I have is 17. But it's open to the community. I was fortunate enough the opportunity to work at a tribal clinic. And I don't charge. They're able to come regardless of their socioeconomic status and come and get this service. And what I'm noticing is they're coming back every week to get the service. Now, along with the protocol, I also provide them free of charge the sleep mix tea. And that has really amped up, their treatment and feeling wonderful. So.
Well, that's wonderful. That's exactly what we want to be happening in the world. So that's quite an affirmation for our movement and our organization. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah,
That's right.
Dr. Nayeri, I just saw, I actually found a piece, I got that stimulated.
Yes.
Because I
Yeah.
was talking Valerie earlier, but mine still works.
So the one that I actually got, what it looks like almost like a lighter, it's black with a red tip.
Oh, all right.
And that I had been using for years. And then when the new one came that you just showed, I got that because I noticed it was a lot more, it was less intimidating. And
Right.
so one thing that I will recommend for anyone that wants to go to the schools, get connected with the school board during a meeting and provide the protocol to the school board members. Once they experience it, then they will see the value in it and allow you to kind of take the next step and go into the schools and provide that service.
That's great. There was a question in the chat. So I know you're at the Wind River Reservation. Is that IHS money, or how do you, how is your program funded?
So my program is funded. No, I am not part of IHS. I am part of the Eastern Shoshone Tribal Health. And so it is funded through grants and community donations. So that's how I've been able to serve. We actually relocated here because my husband runs IHS, and my husband is also Dr. Nayeri and has used this protocol throughout his practice. So what I have found is with this population, you build the trust slowly. And so the ear seeds, because it's silent and it's a silent treatment, it's been wonderful to be able to provide and then see them just open up after 1 or 2 treatments.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So there's an example of using the beads and seeds with children, using the beads and seeds in a tribal nation, and using it both before and in lieu of the protocol. So that's really great. Angela, you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, I just had a quick comment. I wanted to share just quickly, here in Tennessee at Vanderbilt, we actually, I guess it was about 2 years ago, trained some of the NICU nurses who are taking care of our substance exposed babies, and they started using the ear seeds on the babies and also found it to be really useful on the babies who were just not feeling well at all. And I'm really hoping that that is going to be something we can continue to do.
That's really cool.
I think it's amazing. Yeah.
I think there was a short study that was also done at the Yale School of Nursing, probably a good 10, maybe 10, 15 years ago. You might want to, I'm sure they've done it since then, but that was the one that was close to home for me.
Now, with the baby's ears as tiny as they are, what was the primary point that they used? Was it Shenmen or?
It was their Shenmen.
Okay.
Probably reverse Shenmen.
Yeah.
I've used reverse Shenmen on many a toddler. I have 5. I bet Angela has too. I have 5 children and I don't know, 7 grandchildren and 2 great grandchildren, and many a toddler has had reverse ear Shenmen when they're at Grand's house. Not a scientific study. We have time maybe for one more share. Someone who's used beads and seeds out in the field. Anybody have a story to share? If you're doing if you're doing a festival, it's a really easy way to share by just beating people instead of asking them to sit in a chair and get needles in. If they're like at the, at the town harvest festival. I live in a small town in Appalachia, so that's a big deal. Our town harvest festival. So, but I have beaded people. Right? And some of them pick it off before they're at the end of the block, but other people leave them on there. And some people forget about them. And then they're like, ooh, What's that thing? I have had a couple of patients, again, I'm in rural Southwest Virginia, who have woke up in the middle of the night and thought there was a tick in their ear. And so that is a hazard. I have had to warn people that remember, when you wake up in the middle of the night, that's not a tick in your ear. That's your beet or seed. That had you be asleep. That helps with your sleep.
I do visit the homes of gentlemen who are autistic. My son, my oldest son, is 31, and so when I visit, I kind of use him as I was using him as a not using him. I was treating him because he has those cauliflower ears, polychondritis, and he's very, very, very sensitive. And I would ask, his name is Joshua, who I named the Joshua Connection after, and I was like, Joshua, would you want mom to use the stimulation or the ear seeds? And he liked the pokey sensation. So he was like, he was putting his finger like where he wanted me to stimulate, and it was right around those points. It was Shen Man, and we did reverse. So he really liked it. He knows what he likes. So I always ask, what do you? I give him the choice. And he's nonverbal. So.
Oh, wow. That's really, really great. That's really great. So think about the stories that we've heard tonight, using it with different populations, different ages, different abilities, making it accessible. And really think about who's around you. Who can you impact? How can you, little ADSU with some beads in your pocket, how can you expand your use of beads and seeds to help our communities, as they say, in these unprecedented times? I mean, anybody here from Louisville, Nashville, Miami, Chicago? I mean, every day, right? And it's hard, as we talked about last month in our self-care, sometimes it's difficult to, especially when you're in an affected community, that someone says they're taking seeds to work tomorrow for sure. But you can provide beads and seeds, right? You don't have to be in top form to hand a plaque of beads and seeds, maybe on a card, maybe on your business card, maybe on my beads and seeds card, or one that you've designed. So I challenge you, to each of you in the next month, and then shoot me an email. I want to know, to victoria.taylor@accudetox.com. Maybe come talk about it next year when we do beads and seeds again. So I'm going to close the formal part of the evening to help our communities, as they say, in these unprecedented times. I mean, anybody here from Louisville, Nashville, Miami, Chicago? I mean, every day, right? And it's hard, as we talked about last month in our self-care, sometimes it's difficult to, especially when you're in an affected community, that someone says they're taking seeds to work tomorrow for sure. But you can provide beads and seeds, right? You don't have to be in top form to hand a plaque of beads and seeds, maybe on a card, maybe on your business card, maybe on my beads and seeds card, or one that you've designed. So I challenge you, to each of you in the next month, and then shoot me an email. I want to know, to victoria.taylor@accudetox.com. Maybe come talk about it next year when we do beads and seeds again. So I'm going to close the formal part of the evening. We're going to listen to only a bit, not the whole song, Angie, maybe about a minute, of a Punjabi artist, Karun Ajula. He's a song called Take It Easy, because after all, isn't that the point?